the Sports Renegades podcast on SportstownChicago.com.
Be where I have been. Sit with elders of the generation. This world is seldom seen. Top of day.
Welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportstownChicago.com. I didn't want Cashmere to end from Led Zeppelin, but
no, that was a good intro
Yeah.
song, and we were just talking about kind of breakout teams in the MLB, teams that we might not do so up. And then we got a score update from the Cub game.
yes, we do.
Mike Gold hit a 2-run homer.
Yeah, it is now 4-3. Angels still in the lead.
The Cubs' third baseman hit a 2-run homer.
Yes, the Cubs starting third baseman, either him or Tommy La Stella, on a fly ball to left center field. Rizzo scored, so that makes it 4-3.
Yeah.
They're in the top of the fifth now.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. The Cubs' third baseman hit a home run today.
Yeah, there you go. And it was not who you would assume as far as being Chris Bryant.
Yeah, no. Now, we're talking about maybe teams that will do better than expected. How about teams that are going to do worse than expected?
That's a good idea, too.
We'll do one in the National League and one in the American League.
All right, let me try to think, unless you got one that you can go with right away.
My American League team is the Royals, so
Okay.
we kind of briefly talked about that. They lost James Shields. They just don't score enough runs, and they were under the radar last year. There was really no pressure on them, and then really once they got to the postseason, they got all the attention. All the MLB fan base for fans whose team wasn't in the postseason. Those fans are rooting for the Royals because they're the underdog team. Where now they've got higher expectations, and I just don't think they're going to score enough runs.
They're going to have a lot more attendance this year. That's sure. Instead of having their attendance start in late August.
That people are saying, they have the best bullpen ever. They have a fantastic bullpen with Greg Holland, Kelvin Herrera, and Wade Davis.
For sure.
Except, how often do bullpens, year in and year out, are they as dominant from one year to the next? And another thing is, those guys threw so many innings. They were pitching in consecutive days all the time. They're due to regress. That bullpen will not be as good this year. That's just the reality of baseball. It won't be as good. And that's one of the main reasons that team was so good last year was because of that bullpen. And it will not be as good this year. I just don't think the Royals are going to have it.
My team from the American League is the opponents of the Royals in the ALCS, the Baltimore Orioles. I don't know how high expectations they have this year, but they went to the ALCS and they didn't lose a whole lot. They still have their core of Adam Jones, and Matt Wieters will be back. And
you can't feel good when you're trotting out Alejandro Diaz as your starting left fielder.
Although he did do really good once he got traded there, but I agree.
Well, starting left fielder as a starting center fielder, okay, he might give good enough of production, except the left fielder,
right?
Replacing Nelson Cruz, who hit 40 home runs last year,
right?
They lost Nelson Cruz and Nick Markakis. And Nick Markakis was a huge part of that team.
Yeah, I don't think Baltimore will do good this year. I know a lot of people probably still think they might have a chance to compete in the AL East.
Their starting pitching just isn't going to be good enough to offset the loss of that offense, because they were a team built on all those home runs last year.
Yeah.
They lost Cruz, who hit 40 home runs. Nick Markakis hit 11 or 12, except he batted over 300 and was getting on base in the leadoff spot. And, they just don't have, the bona fide ace. They'll have Kevin Gossman in the rotation, Bud Norris, who I believe was tabbed as the opening day starter.
Either him or Tillman.
Chris Tillman, that's the opening day starter. Tillman is a great pitcher.
He's on my fantasy team.
He's not, a legit number one ace.
Right.
He's not, that kind of pitcher. In a good rotation, he could be a really good number two or an unbelievable number three. And this is talking about a typical rotation that is not the Washington Nationals, where you have 5 legit number one starters.
Chris Tillman wouldn't even be a starter in the National rotation.
See, the thing is, when the Nationals signed Max Scherzer, how are you supposed to tell Tanner Roark, who won 15 games and had a 2.86 ERA last year, you're not good enough to be in our starting rotation anymore?
Yeah, it's got to feel bad for him personally, but also he's got to feel great that he's on the best team in baseball.
Yeah, how do you tell a 15-game winner with a 2.86 ERA, you're not good enough to be in our rotation this year?
Yeah, that's got to be tough. But yeah, my American League team would be the Baltimore Orioles. That aren't going to do very well this year.
Now, I mean, now you can understand why they kicked out Roark, except there are people saying that they should trade Roark. Well, Jordan Zimmerman and Doug Fister are going to be gone next year as free agents. They both have Scott Boras as their agent.
Oh,
They both have Scott Boras as their agent. They're both gone. I mean, the Nationals don't have that kind of money. Don't forget, Ian Desmond's a Scott Boras client. He's gone, too. And they gave Scherzer that mega deal where they could just throw Roark back in the rotation. And they have tremendous young pitching. They traded for Joe Ross, and they drafted Lucas Giolito, and they have A.J. Cole, who they traded to the A's and got back in a trade. And so, I mean, that's 3 starters in their minor league system that are legit starters that are probably better than any Cubs pitching prospect. And so, I mean, They can afford to let these guys leave as free agents. I mean, granted, they could probably afford to trade Doug Fister or Jordan Zimmerman at the trade deadline and feel comfortable throwing Roark back in that spot and potentially calling up one of their young future aces. I mean, the starting pitching in their system is fantastic.
yeah.
And I mean, Lucas Giolito is probably the top pitching prospect in the game.
Yes, I have heard his name. Let's move over to the National League. What National League team is expected to do well this year, but one that you don't see doing quite that?
I think just for the sake of this, both of us should not say the Giants just because.
True.
Just because they're not making just because they're the Giants. They missed the postseason in the even number years, and they win it in the odd numbered years. If I had to pick a team, I'm probably going to say the Padres. Not because they made any bad moves. They acquired a tremendous amount of talent. They might have a difficulty with injuries. I have a feeling that at the beginning of the year, guys like Will Myers and Justin Upton and Matt Kemp, who aren't used to playing in that kind of stadium with those winds howling in, are going to get frustrated, and it's going to lead to like kind of longer power outages. And I mean, really, they have a tremendous amount of new guys on that team, and I just don't know if they'll have the right chemistry just being put together in 1 year. I mean, it's a lot of the team chemistry, and I mean just having everyone be in a good place. Now, that's not saying that I'm saying the Padres are going to be bad next year. I just don't think they'll exceed they will reach their expectations for this year, potentially being a playoff candidate. I think maybe in between like maybe 80 and 84 wins is what I expect out of them. Now, I don't think they'll really contend for a wild card spot.
I'm going to go with the Miami Marlins. A lot of people think that they could give the Nats some trouble. Still, most people think the Nationals are going to win the
I don't
division.
know how there's no team that can give the Nationals a run, because if you think about it with the Nationals, they have 5 number 1 aces. That means they have 5 guys that are going to go out there and win you a game, as long as your bullpen doesn't blow it.
Yeah, so I'm going with the Marlins. They made some good moves. They're going to be improved, but a lot of people are quick to say, well, they're going to be in the wild card race. I'm not so sure about that. I think there's a lot of better teams that are better, including the Padres, and of course, San Francisco could be in the wild card race. Not saying that they'll get there, but they could be in the wild card race. And then, of course, the Central Division. You'll have the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Pirates, the Brewers. Even the Cincinnati Reds could have a surprising year. All of them, are going to be fighting for wild cards and divisions. I just think Miami's a little too weak of a team.
Right. I think this is a year
at this point. I think it'll be a stepping stone for them, and they'll be good in a few years. But I don't see it right now.
I was actually going to say, I think that this might be a year too early to be really thinking about the Marlins. And another team that you just reminded me, the Reds are a team that are going to probably have higher expectations. People saying, "Oh yeah, Votto and Phillips are going to be healthy." Yeah, well, when Votto was healthy, he wasn't hitting. He was He wasn't his batting.
Pretty much their best player is Jay Bruce, possibly,
and
he had at least offense.
He had a bad year. I mean, Devin Mesoraco had a fantastic offensive season. Except, Votto, he's just not good anymore. The power's gone. He's too selective at the plate. He waits for his pitch, and that really hinders they're going to hinder your power numbers. I think his power just isn't there anymore. He showed it not last season, at the end of this prior season, that his power was in major decline, and he might not even be a 20 home run guy. He might be a 15 to 17 home run guy, if that, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy the past 3 years. And Phillips is 33. His power isn't coming back. And their starting pitching took a major hit when they traded Matt Latos and Alfredo Simon. So, now Jason Marquise is going to be their number 5 starter. That doesn't make me.
I remember him on the Cubs.
Yeah, I mean that's not the kind of guy you want as your number 5 starter if you're going to be contending. So
right, okay. So those are our picks for teams that aren't going to do so well this year.
Will not meet expectations.
Yeah, that they will not meet expectations. You once again can tweet us towards at Ryan Stuprich
at rrisky16.
We're going to do an update right now, and then we will take a break, and we'll come back for our final segment. So stick around. Sports Renegades, SportsTownChicago.com. The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.